Hi everyone, my name is Memo. This is my channel, The Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially this is a place where I will showcase some of my plants, give some care tips, at least things that I found have worked in my environment. So if you're interested in content like that, as a new content creator on YouTube, it really does help. Give it a like down below if you like this video. If you want to see more of these types of videos, I'm hoping to get about 2 to 3 videos out each week. So hit the subscribe down below and yeah, let's get into it. So this was actually a request from a really lovely follower that I have on my Instagram profile. I will link that in the description down below as well in case you wanted to see. I've got a lot more videos on Instagram and pictures of my plants. Do check it out as well. But my follower requested an Alocasia Care video. I've actually spotlighted some other alocasias in the past, but a lot of people always asking me how do I keep my alocasias as happy as I do, growing and thriving. So I thought I'd share what works for me in my environment. I will caveat this and say if it works in my environment, it's not necessarily that it will work in your environment, but this is what has been successful for me. So in front of me, hopefully you'll be able to see, it's quite a large plant, is a variegated alocasia. Scientific name is eluding me at the moment. I will drop it somewhere down below and you can see the name of it. But this alocasia, you might be able to notice, is variegated, and you can see the variegation. When it gets older, it becomes a lot more creamy. When it's younger, it's a bit more minty colored, and you can see at the top it comes in, and this is what's called a Polaroid variegation. So Polaroid variegation, when the leaf first emerges, everything might look green, and eventually as the leaf ages, you'll start seeing that variegation come in and a bit more of a cream color essentially. So with all of my alocasia, I will keep them in, and I'm hopefully you might be able to see it's in terracotta. It's also in my light airy aroid mix, soil mix. There is another video on my channel where I talk about how I create that soil mix, and it's worked for me like a charm. With this alocasia, I have got it in terracotta, but actually with a lot of alocasia, even though they are aroids, that's why you want to have as much aeration in the soil. They do appreciate having some air within their soil, otherwise they can go towards root rot quite quickly. Alocasias are interesting. They're like colocaceas. They have a tuber in the soil, and normally you would imagine if there's a tuber in the soil, it could probably tolerate a bit more dryness, but actually alocasia and colocasia are aroids that like to have some moisture within their soil. And generally how I would water this plant is I'd have a moisture meter. Unfortunately I don't have it with me at the moment, and I would normally look at where it gets to a level of between moist and dry, and just essentially just monitor this for a couple of weeks when you first get your plant in and see where that biting point is, and that's when you want to water. If you let the plant dry too much, you'll get the ultimate curse of an alocasia where you will lose a leaf every time you get a new leaf, and because of the way that they grow, that would mean that you would never have any more leaves than you actually have at that particular moment in time. So not ideal. What I found is if I do that technique with the water and just being able to water it just before it goes fully dry, it works for me every time to get new leaves and keep the older leaves as well. Obviously, I still will lose some of the older leaves, but it will be months and months and months after they've originally emerged. So that's one of the tips. The other thing is for alocasia, generally speaking, most people will say that it's okay in maybe medium light or bright and direct, but actually bright and direct is generally what works best. And actually some direct light works for me as well. I find that as long as it's not getting 12 hours of direct light, then it should be fine. Now, pest is another thing you might be able to notice, is this little satchel that looks a bit like a tea bag. Essentially, this is predatory mites, which I found is the best thing to deal with spider mites. And if you've got alocasia or colocasia, you will know that spider mites are going to be the bane of your existence. I've actually just spotted some spider mites on the bottom of this leaf. And generally speaking, what I do in order to avoid a full-blown infestation when it comes to spider mites, especially in the winter time, because spider mites tend to be a lot more prevalent in the winter time, is just every time you water your alocasia or colocasia, just quickly have a quick scan of the leaves, make sure that there's some lights shining on it, and you should be able to see the little spider mites on there. If you've got a large enough plant and you catch it early enough, an alocasia infestation on 1 or 2 leaves will not decimate the entire plant. It probably even won't harm it that much. Don't let it get ridiculous and it affects the whole plant, because it could decimate your plant eventually. So just bear that in mind. And yeah, we talked about lighting. Give it as much light as you can possibly get. Don't fry it like a succulent, but it will tolerate a few hours of direct light if you want to put it there, and I actually found it works better. Watering, normal house tap water is fine. I know some people use distilled water or filtered water for a lot of the other fussier houseplants. I don't find that alocasias or colocasias have any problem with that. Fertilizers, they are heavy fertilizers. During the summer months, I will fertilize every week or every other week, and then they grow quite large. In the winter, I will still fertilize, but I'll maybe pull it back to maybe once a month. Now, I know a lot of people, when it comes to alocasia, will say that in the winter it will go into a dormancy period and it won't grow. Most of my alocasias, if not all of my alocasias, still grow, maybe not to the same speed that they were growing during the summer, but they still grow quite nicely even in the winter. So I still want to make sure that they're getting some fertilizer, they're getting that nutrition coming in from the soil so they can grow large. And I think that is everything. Do you do something similar to your alocasia or colocasia? How do you care for it? Drop it in the comments down below and let's have that conversation. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and hopefully I shall see you here soon. Thanks. Bye.